Welcome back to the deep dive. We're here to sift through the noise, really get to those impactful insights. And today, we're plunging into something quite interesting. The subtle power of everyday English phrases. You know, those little linguistic tools that once you really get them, can seriously elevate how you communicate. We've all been there, right? A conversation where maybe your words felt a bit flat or the meaning didn't quite land. So our mission for this deep dive is to give you the keys, really, to unlock that deeper meaning, to help you express yourself with more clarity, more confidence, especially when it matters. We're going to look at a fortune, then at most, and finally that really insightful pair in the short term and in the long run. And this isn't just about memorizing definitions, okay? It's about understanding how we perceive value, commitment, even consequence.
Yeah, it really is fascinating, isn't it, how these phrases, they seem so simple on the surface. But actually, they're like these miniature linguistic contracts. They shape how we understand everything from, huge financial scales right down to very precise time limits. It's not just what we say. It's about how we want that message to be heard. What kind of commitment, what emphasis, what time frame. And understanding them, well, it isn't just for, say, English learners. It's about navigating those subtle undercurrents in communication for anyone. If you think about the bigger picture, mastering these helps you cut through ambiguity. Make sure your message isn't just, heard, but really understood, profoundly understood, whether that's in personal stuff or strategic business talks. They just add this layer of sophistication, way beyond basic vocab.
Okay, so let's jump right in then. Let's start with one we hear constantly, especially around money. A fortune. We all sort of know it means a very large amount of money. But like you said, that simple definition barely scratches the surface, does it? There's a kind of weight to a fortune, an unspoken story almost. It's not just a quantity. It feels like a statement. So what are some of those deeper layers woven into this phrase, beyond just the literal number?
Yeah, you've really hit on something crucial there. The core meaning, yes, it's a very large amount of money. But what's really interesting is the connotation. It often implies something, well, unexpectedly large or remarkably large. Sometimes it even hints at something exorbitant, almost beyond the ordinary. It's not just a lot of money. It's emphatically a lot. And often it carries this sense of awe or surprise, maybe even a touch of judgment. Think about it when we say a fortune, we're usually comparing it implicitly to what's typical or reasonable in that situation.
That makes sense. It's like you're adding an emotional color to the amount.
Exactly. And there's another layer, too, thinking about the word itself. Fortune has these historical roots in fate or luck. So when we talk about making a fortune, there's often this undercurrent, this suggestion of a significant windfall maybe, or an extraordinary stroke of luck. It's not necessarily just steady incremental savings. It often evokes this sense of sudden prosperity, a really life-altering sum. That etymological link, it adds a subtle flavor, doesn't it? It distinguishes it from just wealth or riches. It's about a turn of financial events.
Wow, that's a powerful connection. I hadn't really thought about the luck aspect. It really does make a fortune feel less like a neutral number and more like something charged with destiny or emotion. It's like the phrase itself carries the story behind the money or its impact. So with that nuanced understanding, how does its relative nature fit in? What's a fortune to me might be pocket change to someone else, right?
Absolutely. And that's a key question for you, the listener, to consider. What counts as a fortune is fundamentally relative. It depends entirely on the context.
Yeah.
A fortune for, say, a student grappling with loans is completely different from a fortune for a huge tech company thinking about a billion-dollar deal. The phrase gets its power from its ability to signal a significant, often really impactful financial scale within that specific context. So when someone says something cost a fortune, they're not just stating a fact, they're also expressing a judgment about its value or cost relative to their own situation or maybe a common understanding. It helps convey that emotional weight, whether it's, extravagance, a heavy burden, or even an aspiration.
Okay, so context is everything. Can we look at some examples? How does this play out when we talk about costs?
Sure. Let's illustrate with some scenarios. When we talk about something costing a fortune, we're rarely just focused on the number itself. We're usually emphasizing a high price, maybe even a prohibitive one, that makes a significant impact. For example, if your friend looks at a flashy car and says, that custom-built sports car must have cost a fortune, what are they really saying? They're conveying not just the expense, but the extreme luxury, the exclusivity, probably way beyond what most people consider reasonable. It instantly paints a picture of opulence.
Right. Or on a maybe less glamorous note, I've heard people say things like, repairing the house after that storm damage is going to cost us a fortune. That context immediately tells you it's a massive, unexpected expense, a significant financial burden, maybe even causing real hardship. So the feeling shifts completely from luxury to, well, an overwhelming obligation.
Precisely. The emotional resonance changes entirely with the context. It's the same phrase, different impact. Think about a medical situation. His cancer treatment ended up costing a fortune. That speaks volumes, doesn't it? It implies a huge, maybe overwhelming financial outlay tied to something essential, like life-saving care. It's not just about money. It's about immense pressure, potentially a life-altering sacrifice. These examples show how a fortune acts as a kind of shorthand for the impact of the money, not just the amount.
Okay, that makes sense for costing. What about spending?
Well, the same principle applies when we discuss spending a fortune. It tends to conjure images of, let's say, lavish or extensive spending. If someone tells you we spent a fortune on our trip to Bora Bora, it immediately suggests an indulgent, maybe no-expense spared experience. A really memorable, perhaps once-in-a-lifetime kind of vacation. It highlights luxury, dedication to that experience. Or they spent a fortune renovating their old farmhouse. This doesn't just mean they paid a lot. It suggests a massive investment, probably implies serious structural work, maybe high-end materials, meticulous attention to detail. It communicates a major undertaking.
And then, of course, there's the flip side, the dream of making a fortune.
Exactly. And here the phrase often signifies immense financial gain, often a sum that really changes someone's life. When you hear, she made a fortune when she sold her tech startup, you immediately grasp that she's achieved significant wealth, probably in a transformative way. It implies a dramatic shift in her financial status.
Like hitting the jackpot, almost.
Sort of, yeah. Or maybe he inherited a fortune from his long-lost uncle, totally changed his life overnight. This describes receiving a very large sum, often unexpectedly. It highlights that windfall aspect, something that dramatically alters circumstances. And for those with, say, an entrepreneurial streak, with the right investments in green tech, you can make a fortune in the next 10 years. This points to the potential for significant, maybe groundbreaking financial gain through smart, forward-looking decisions. It speaks to aspirational wealth, a really significant financial path.
Okay, so wrapping up a fortune then, what's the key takeaway for our listeners? Why does understanding this nuance matter?
Right. So the real takeaway for you here is that this phrase is much more than just a synonym for expensive or rich. It lets you express extreme financial scale, concisely, yes, but also evocatively. More importantly, it helps you convey the impact or the significance of that amount. Is it a burden, a luxury, an unexpected windfall, an ambitious goal? The phrase hints at that context. By understanding its nuances, you really grasp the speaker's emphasis on financial scale and the underlying emotional or contextual judgment. You'll pick this up in casual chat, business reports everywhere. It's a powerful tool for conveying the story behind the money, not just the figures.
That's really clear. It's about the story and the impact. Okay, so moving from that vast, often emotive world of a fortune, let's shift gears completely. Let's talk about something that demands absolute precision, at the most. Anson, Tim. This phrase, it seems incredibly useful for setting expectations, providing clarity, especially important, I think, in a world where ambiguity can lead to real problems, missed deadlines, budget overruns, broken promises. What exactly does at the most communicate, and why is that specific kind of clarity so crucial? What's the sort of hidden power in setting such a clear boundary with language?
Well, what's really powerful about at the most isn't just that it sets a limit. It's the trust it builds. It means, quite simply, no more than, or the maximum possible. It acts as this crucial linguistic boundary marker. When you use this phrase, you're not just tossing out an estimate, you're making a commitment. It's like a linguistic promise that you won't exceed that ceiling. It's a statement of reliability, a clear cap that removes ambiguity, makes sure there are no misunderstandings about what's allowed or expected or possible. It essentially tells the listener, you can count on this maximum.
A linguistic promise. I like that. So it's about dependability.
Yes, exactly. That commitment aspect is vital. Imagine, say, a contractor telling you the painting work will take 5 days at the most. That's a strong guarantee, isn't it? It means the team must finish within that time. You, as the client, can plan with confidence, knowing the disruption won't drag on longer. This is where at the most becomes a cornerstone for establishing precision and reliability. In estimates, schedules, contracts, you name it. It helps manage risk and builds that foundation of trust.
It feels like a kind of psychological contract, too. When someone uses at the most, they're saying, look, I'm confident enough to give you this absolute upper limit. But what about Distinguishing it from similar phrases, like how is it different from at least? That also deals with a limit.
That's a very excellent point, and the distinction is critical for you, the listener, to get right. At the most ensures you're looking at the absolute ceiling, the upper limit, not the floor. If someone says, I need at least 2 hours to finish this report, they're telling you the minimum time required. It could easily take 3 hours or 4 or more, but if they say, I need 2 hours at the most, they're stating the absolute maximum. It implies it might even take less time, but definitely not more. This difference, it seems subtle, but it's huge for accurate interpretation and planning. It helps you avoid, say, underpreparing or over-allocating resources because you misunderstood. It's the difference between this is the starting point and this is the absolute finish line.
Got it. Ceiling versus floor. Very clear. Can we walk through some practical examples, maybe starting with time?
Sure, let's look at time estimates, where precision is often really critical in our, busy lives. Think about scheduling a meeting. The presentation will last 45 minutes at the most. That sets an explicit, firm time limit. It manages everyone's expectations, lets them schedule their day knowing that meeting won't overrun. It's a promise of efficiency, really, and respect for people's time. Or if you're giving directions, maybe it should take 30 minutes at the most to get downtown outside of peak hours. Here, you're providing a reliable upper boundary. You're easing potential travel anxiety by assuring the person they won't be stuck in traffic for, like, an hour unexpectedly. It gives them a sense of control.
Yeah, and I've definitely heard it used in customer service situations to manage waiting times really effectively. Like, your call will be answered in 5 minutes at the most. That kind of assurance, even if you still have to wait a bit, can really reduce frustration because you have a clear, dependable time frame. It turns uncertainty into something manageable.
Exactly. It's about empowering the listener with predictable information, which is often very calming. Now, let's consider quantity or capacity. Here, limits are often just practical necessities, right? They prevent logistical chaos. For example, saying, I can take 3 passengers at the most in my car for the weekend trip. Right. This clearly states the physical constraint. It prevents that awkward situation where 4 people turn up expecting a ride. It's about clear logistics, even safety.
Makes sense. Avoids the squeeze.
Right. Or in a slightly different social context, maybe at a potluck dinner. Please bring 1 dessert at the most. This sets a clear limit on contributions. Perhaps to ensure variety or manage the amount of food or just gently guide people. It's direct, unambiguous. Avoids having 15 cakes. And for larger events, say, planning conference, we expect 500 attendees at the most for the main keynote. Oh, this forecasts a definite upper limit that's critical for booking the right venue size, arranging catering, managing fire codes, overall event flow. It's about precise resource allocation.
These examples really show how at the most isn't just about numbers. It's about clarity, managing expectations, sometimes even preventing discomfort or logistical failures. I imagine it's just as vital when talking about money, where clear boundaries can prevent some major headaches.
Oh, absolutely. For cost or price, using at the most offers a strong, often very reassuring commitment. Think of a mechanic saying, replacing the brakes will cost $400 at the most, parts and labor included. That guarantees a maximum expenditure. That's incredibly valuable for anyone trying to budget or just manage financial risk. It tells the customer exactly what the ceiling is. No hidden fees, no nasty surprises later. It builds trust through that transparency.
That's definitely reassuring when you're facing a potentially big bill.
It is. Or in a negotiation scenario, if you state clearly, I'm willing to pay $100 at the most for that antique lamp, you're indicating your personal price ceiling. You're communicating your absolute limit very clearly. It's a firm statement of your budget or what you think it's worth. It helps set realistic expectations for both sides in a potential transaction. It shows you set your limit and you're sticking to it.
Okay, so tying the section together, why is mastering at the most so essential for our listeners?
Right, why is this phrase essential for you? Well, it empowers you to set clear, dependable expectations, to avoid confusion in estimates, plans, instructions, both personal and professional. It helps you communicate limits and boundaries effectively. That creates a sense of reliability and trust, whether you're making a promise, setting a rule, or asking for clarification. And crucially, understanding it ensures you correctly interpret limitations when others use it. You don't make assumptions beyond the stated maximum. That prevents misunderstandings that could cost you time, money, or even damage relationships or your reputation. In a world that's often full of uncertainty, at the most is actually one of your most powerful tools for creating certainty.
Certainty through language. I like that. Okay. So we've explored the vastness of a fortune and the precise boundaries of at the most. Now, what happens when we bring time into the equation? When we talk about decisions, strategies, and how their consequences unfold over different time scales? That brings us to our final pair, which I find incredibly useful and insightful in the short term and in the long run. These two phrases, they almost always travel together, don't they? They act like these essential lenses for examining time and impact. They help us frame how we think about consequences, forcing us to distinguish immediate effects from those future outcomes, which is just vital for planning, strategy, even just understanding life's complexities.
Absolutely. If we connect this to the bigger picture, these phrases are fundamental to strategic thinking and to understanding the true nature of consequences. In the short term, that refers to the immediate future or the effects that happen right away, things you can typically see pretty quickly after an action. And conversely, in the long run, that points to the distant future or the cumulative eventual effects. Outcomes that might not be obvious at first, but they develop and solidify over a longer period. They highlight this critical distinction when we're evaluating actions, plans, or outcomes. We have to consider these different time horizons. It's about realizing that decisions made today can look very different depending on whether you're looking 5 weeks out or 5 years out.
Right, the perspective shifts completely.
It does. And what's really fascinating here, and maybe a key insight for you, the listener, is how often short-term gains can actually lead to long-term problems. And sometimes the opposite is true short-term pain for long-term gain. They aren't always mutually exclusive, often they're deeply interdependent. This dynamic really pushes us towards a more holistic, more critical view of decision-making. It prompts us to consider both the immediate needs and the future implications at the same time. Our brains are often wired for immediate gratification. It's kind of an evolutionary thing. It makes short-term thinking feel more natural, more appealing sometimes. The real challenge, and what these phrases help us articulate, is how conscious we have to be to fight that bias, especially in business or policy or even just our personal habits. To avoid sort of optimizing for the wrong time frame, it really boils down to weighing present satisfaction against future benefit, or maybe present sacrifice for a future reward.
That's such a crucial point about our bias towards the immediate. It's so easy to grab the quick win without fully seeing the ultimate cost or maybe the deeper benefit of being patient. Let's dig into some examples. Maybe start with financial decisions. That seems like an area where this short-term versus long-run tension is always playing out.
Indeed. In financial decisions, these phrases are just indispensable for talking about investment strategies, risk, overall financial health. For instance, you might say, investing heavily in, say, very volatile tech stocks might offer exciting quick gains in the short term, but a diversified portfolio built on solid blue-chip companies is often far more reliable and builds wealth more securely in the long run. Here, you're contrasting the lure of rapid, maybe high-risk returns with the steadier, more secure growth offered by established players over many years. It's that classic risk-reward discussion across different time frames. It highlights how deceptive immediate success can sometimes be.
Right, the quick buck versus steady growth.
Exactly. Or consider a really common pitfall. Taking out a high-interest loan might solve an urgent cash problem in the short term, giving you that immediate relief you need, but it could trap you in a cycle of debt and cause serious financial strain in the long run. This powerfully shows that trade-off between immediate, maybe desperate relief and the eventual compounding burden of high interest. That can severely impact your long-term financial freedom. It's a stark reminder of how those seemingly quick fixes can sometimes create much bigger, harder-to-solve problems down the road.
That's a powerful example, showing how short-term fixes can really undermine long-term stability. And this isn't just personal finance, right? These dynamics must be core to business strategy, too.
Oh, absolutely. Think about corporate decisions all the time. Aggressively cutting the research and development budget might save money and make the quarterly reports look good in the short term, boosting profits temporarily. But it could severely damage employee morale, stifle innovation, and really erode the company's competitive advantage in the long run. This illustrates how that kind of short-sighted cost-cutting can undermine the fundamental health, the future growth, the competitiveness of a company over time. Even if it looks good on paper for a little while, it emphasizes that you need balance. You need a strategic vision for sustained success.
Those insights definitely resonate beyond the boardroom. They impact our personal lives constantly, and I think health and lifestyle choices are a perfect example, where we're always wrestling with immediate gratification versus our long-term well-being.
Precisely. In health and lifestyle choices, these phrases perfectly frame our understanding of habits and their profound cumulative effects. Like, Eating junk food feels satisfying. It's convenient in the short term, right? It offers immediate pleasure, minimal effort. But a consistently healthy diet is absolutely crucial for your sustained energy, preventing disease, and just your overall well-being in the long run. This is such a fundamental lesson in self-control and foresight. Contrasting that fleeting satisfaction with enduring foundational health, it highlights the often unseen cumulative impact of small daily choices.
Yeah, the daily choices really add up.
They do. Or think about something so common today. Pulling all-nighters, constantly skipping sleep to meet deadlines that might let you finish a specific project in the short term, but it's significantly detrimental to your cognitive function, your immune system, your mental health in the long run. This points out how those temporary solutions that override our basic biological needs can have severe compounding negative impacts, leading to burnout, lower productivity, even chronic health issues over time.
And on the flip side, the same logic applies when building good habits, which often require that initial push, that short-term effort.
Indeed. Starting a regular exercise routine can be tough. It can feel hard in the short term. It demands discipline, effort. You have to overcome initial discomfort maybe just to build the habit. But the benefits to your physical strength, your mental clarity, your longevity, they are truly immense in the long run. Here we acknowledge those initial hurdles, that short-term discomfort, but we emphasize the profound and lasting advantages of sticking with it. It's a powerful message about delayed gratification leading to really substantial, life-enriching rewards.
It really is all about making those conscious choices, isn't it? Understanding that what feels easy or good right now might not be what's truly best for us later. And this kind of strategic thinking, it must extend to bigger life decisions too, like careers and education.
Absolutely. In career and education, these phrases help people navigate major life paths, weigh significant trade-offs. For example, taking a gap year to travel or volunteer might delay your entry into a traditional career path in the short term, pushing back that immediate climb up the ladder, perhaps. But the personal growth, the cultural understanding, the new perspectives gained could be invaluable and make you stand out in the long run. This weighs that immediate pause against the potential for really significant personal and professional enrichment. That could ultimately lead to a more fulfilling, well-rounded, maybe even more successful career down the line. It's about investing in yourself in ways that aren't always linear.
That's a great perspective on something like a gap year.
Or think about higher education. Pursuing a master's or PhD often means significant financial sacrifice, maybe taking on loans, putting in long hours in the short term. You might be foregoing income you could be earning right now. But it can open doors to much more specialized roles, higher earning potential, and broader career opportunities in the long run. This really illustrates those critical trade-offs between immediate cost and potential future gain. It underscores how strategic investments in your own skills and knowledge can pay off significantly over a lifetime. It's a testament to education as a long-term strategy.
And as we broaden the view even further, beyond personal and professional lives, these phrases seem absolutely essential for tackling global challenges. Things like climate change, social justice, where the consequences play out over decades, even centuries.
They absolutely are. They are essential tools for framing these huge, complex, systemic problems. Think about environmental issues. The widespread use of single-use plastics might seem incredibly convenient and cheap in the short term, offers immediate ease, disposability, but it poses a severe, potentially existential threat to our ecosystems, our oceans, our wildlife, leading to irreversible pollution in the long run. This starkly contrasts that immediate, seemingly small individual convenience with the overwhelming cumulative and potentially irreversible damage to the planet's health. It forces us to confront the true, often hidden long-term cost of that convenience.
A very sobering example.
It is. And looking at societal structures, ignoring deep-seated social inequalities, maybe to avoid difficult conversations or resist necessary changes, might seem to keep things stable and avoid disruption in the short term. But it inevitably breeds resentment, fuels instability, and leads to profound injustice in the long run. This highlights how that kind of short-term political or social complacency can actually sow the seeds for much larger, more destructive societal problems, ethical failures, even conflict down the road. It underscores the need to address underlying issues proactively rather than just letting them fester.
So bringing this all together for our listeners, why are in the short term and in the long run so indispensable?
Right. Why are these phrases so critical for you? Well, they provide this powerful, quite sophisticated framework for discussing complex issues, for making informed decisions, for analyzing outcomes with real foresight. They help you articulate nuanced perspectives on consequences. They allow you to explain why a certain action, even if it's difficult or costly right now, might be profoundly beneficial eventually, or why something that looks good now might be disastrous later. Understanding them lets you engage in deeper, more strategic conversations about almost any topic, from your personal goals or career path right up to global policy and environmental action, because you can articulate that crucial time dimension, cause and effect over time with real precision and foresight. They essentially elevate your thinking and your conversation from being just reactive to being truly strategic. Yeah.
From reactive to strategic. That's a great way to put it. Well, what an illuminating deep dive that was into 3 phrases that seem simple but are just packed with power. A fortune, at the most, and that really critical pair in the short term and in the long run. We've really seen how these expressions, they don't just add words, they add these vital layers of meaning, precision, context to how we communicate. They're not just about saying what, but about conveying how much or how little, and crucially when something matters, influencing how we perceive value, commitment, future impact. The beauty of language really is in its utility, isn't it? And these phrases are just prime examples of tools you can now use to be more effective, clearer, and definitely more eloquent.
That's absolutely right. And, knowledge is most valuable when you understand it and then apply it. Mastering these phrases, it isn't just about boosting your vocabulary list. It's really about gaining a deeper insight into how we in the English-speaking world express scale, set limits, and think about time and consequences. They are fundamental building blocks for, as you said, sophisticated thought and clear, impactful expression.
So perhaps a final thought for our listeners to take away.
Yes. So, as you go about your day, here's a little challenge, maybe something to ponder. Try to consciously listen for these phrases. Where do you hear them being used? Notice how they subtly shift the meaning of a conversation. Maybe turning a vague estimate into a firm deadline with "at the most." Or distinguishing an immediate tempting outcome from a much more enduring strategic benefit using short-term and long-run. And then think about how you might integrate them more thoughtfully, more precisely into your own speech, to enhance your impact, to make sure your message lands exactly as you intended. Consider how these phrases aren't just, bits of language. They actually reflect deeper cultural ways, cognitive ways of thinking about value, boundaries, and the future. There's always more to learn, of course, but by really focusing on these essential building blocks, you're definitely well on your way to becoming a more precise, more strategic, and ultimately a more powerful communicator.
That's a fantastic takeaway. Thank you. And thank you, our listeners, for joining us on this deep dive into the profound power hiding in everyday English. We hope you feel a little more equipped now to navigate the nuances of language and express yourself with greater confidence and strategic insight. Join us next time for another exploration into the fascinating world of knowledge.